Well, Generation Y, typically the group born between the early 1980s and the late 1990s. So that's the group, and that's typical across the Western world. We see that as the cohort. So at the moment, they'd be between, say, age 12 and 30, but obviously each year that goes up the scale. Well, I think certainly one of the differences is their level of comfort with technology. I read an article a few years ago that said if you were born before 1980, you are at best an immigrant in the land of technology. So it's always a catch-up game, it's not natural. Whereas for Generation Y and then their younger cousins Gen Z, it is the only world they've known. They've only known the high-tech world. So certainly the degree of comfort with technology, also their confidence. You know, Gen Y were raised just after the 1979 Year of the Child focus on self-esteem. And so in the early 80s, there was such a focus within education and within parenting circles on, giving kids messages of affirmation and, you are special and magnificent and brilliant and unique and you can do whatever you want and you can change the world, you can be a leader. All these sort of messages crafted a group who knew their rights, who were confident, who were ambitious, and so therefore, they're a great group to work with because they've got a lot of energy as a result of that. Generation Y, it's funny that they will work very hard to be affirmed, to be celebrated, to stand out. And that's a contrast with Generation X, who as a group really didn't want to be, separated from the peers too much. They didn't want to stand out. Whereas Generation Y absolutely love a reward, a recognition, a trophy, a ribbon, a pennant, and they're very competitive and will work very hard for that. For older generations, caring about the planet's become something they've had to decide to do because it wasn't in their frame of reference, and then evidence came to light and they had to decide what they were going to do with that. For Generation Y and Gen Z, particularly even more for Gen Z, they've never had to make a decision as to whether they care about the environment because from birth, it's been on the agenda. And so for my age group, those in their late 20s, it was rainforests, it was koala habitats. From a very young age, we were singing songs at primary school about it. So we're very aware of the environment. The challenge is sometimes as a bit of desensitization because we hear so much about it. But certainly it's an ingrained part of our awareness. We've grown up with this discussion about saving the planet, and now of course it's about carbon emissions. And for this group, it is just normal part of everyday life to be aware of it, to be conscious of it. Well, to some extent, yes and no. Human beings, being human beings, regardless of their generation, are always going to take the path of least resistance. It's sort of hardwired into us. And so for this group, you've got a large proportion of them who they know that it's important to eat healthily and to exercise, don't we all? But they don't actually do it until they realise that there's a cost to not doing it. And so I think with many Gen Ys, because they're still at that age where you can get away with not eating too well and still look good and function quite well, for many of them it's a logical, I should do that, but perhaps they're not taking the steps. However, they're about to enter a life stage, i.e. 30 beyond, where suddenly they'll probably realise that this does take a toll if I don't look after myself. And so I think it's the next 10 years that you'll really see this group start to lock into their health and wellness. That whole track, because up until now, when you're young, you can get away with it, but you've got this massive group who are about to get to an age where they're going to have to start making different decisions, and that can be a very positive thing for this industry. The whole word of career is one that has changed significantly in the last 30 years. So that idea of this generation being told in school systems they're going to have 5 to 7 very different careers in their lives. It's always funny too, they'll get the message in schools that many of the jobs they'll have in the year, say 2025, don't even exist today, but then in the next breath the teacher will try and sit down and help them write a career plan. And so you've got these two very different mindsets, and for them, the idea of the future is not a linear one. It's not about that long linear path to plan out and get locked in. It's about leaving your options open. It's about being very flexible, knowing that things are going to change, and trying to prepare yourself for whatever eventuates. So certainly their view of career is very different perhaps to that of their parents. There's a degree of fearlessness in this generation. This idea of, I'll give it a shot, why not? Try something new. I've done a course for 3 years, I'll work in that field for 8 months, and then I'm ready for a change. And so they'll go and change directions entirely. And older generations will often see that and think, why would you give away a safe, secure job or a set career? And that's because for this group, it isn't what they want. They want the flexibility, they want the variety, they want to be challenged. And as a result, they do try a lot of different things, and we see that in careers, but we see that in all sorts of areas, in hobbies, in the courses they study, and so they're a very flexible group. Certainly success is the goal. How that's measured is quite different for this group. So they are starting their lives, they're starting their careers with a real commitment to things like balance, fulfillment. Certainly money is important, but it's not the be-all and end-all. And much of that is a result of the messages they've been given since early childhood that money doesn't buy happiness, and that has really been drilled in. This desire to have a rich life, not just financially, but across the whole spectrum. They want success, but how it's defined is different. Their desire for success, though, does mean they're ambitious, they're hungry, they are looking, and in many senses they feel entitled to success. From a young age, they've been told that they deserve the best in everything, and as a result, they do expect that. They want it all, and they do want it now. And that does create a desire to be very strategic in what they spend their time doing. So they want to have good family time, good health, they want to have good nutrition, they want to earn good money, they want to have good experiences and memories, they want to travel. Of course, the flip side is that creates a lot of stress and tension because you can't have it all at once, but it's certainly a really good ambition.